everybody, and welcome back again to Let's Play Fallout New Vegas. Today we are finally going to continue with our main mission, and that means I have to make a decision. Now technically the only decision I have to make today is between the NCR and Mr. House, because I assume that the Yes Man path will be unaffected by that, but we may as well use this opportunity to make our final decision. So for all of you who have been with my channel for a while, you know what that means. I'm going to talk a lot about my thought process in regards to this decision. I will talk about the three options that are available right now. I will not talk about the Legion again, because that train has left a long time ago and I wasn't really tempted to take it anyway. But I will talk about all the other options. If you're not interested in that, you should probably skip ahead a lot, because I will most likely spend most of this episode just talking about my thoughts on this. And I've come to this place to do it because if I'm going to spend such a large amount of time talking, we may as well do it with a nice view. So I came here to Hoover Dam. We can look at Hoover Dam and the Legion camp, so this seems to be like a good place to do so. But yeah, as you've been noticing, I have been postponing my final decision for as much as I could for, well, basically two reasons. For once, I wanted to make sure that I have all the information available. I wanted to give every option a decent chance and pursue it for as much as I could. And secondly, I wasn't really overly happy with any of the options. They all have some upsides and they all have significant downsides, which, is completely fair. If there was one perfect option, it, wouldn't be much of a decision, would it? So I'm not blaming the game for giving me all these imperfect options. I think that's actually good writing. But you may also remember that in the past, I did voice some affinity for the Yes Man path. And that was mostly because, I don't know, it seemed the most interesting. It was a bit different than the other options, since it, was breaking a little bit with the usual pick a faction trope, since, the Yes Man isn't really a faction on its own. It's more like a means to an end. And the Yes Man path just seemed to open up the biggest range of possible outcomes, at least in theory. Because the problem is, the game is, well, not really specific what the results of picking the Yes Man will be. So I have to admit, I was just a bit curious to see what happens if I pick it and what the outcome will be. But, I've been thinking about this, and I have to admit, all of these reasons are extremely meta. So they apply to me, the player, but not really to my in-game character, Hera. And since this is an RPG, I feel that I have to make my decision based on her perspective and not mine. Now, I do admit that I do sometimes blur the lines between me and my character. And yes, there's always like a bit of myself in every one of the characters that I play. But, at least when it comes to the major decisions, I've always tried in pretty much every RPG that I've played so far to make the decision based on what I think my character would do, not so much what I would do or my preferred option. So, since I like the Yes Man path, I have been trying really, really hard to come up with reasons why Hera would pick the Yes Man. And honestly, I can't really think of many. She likes robots, okay, but that's not really much of a reason, right? And in the end, the reasons that appeal to me are actually more of a counter-argument for her, I'm afraid. So she's not going to decide the fate of Vegas based on what's most interesting, or, because she's curious to see how it ends. These are pretty lame reasons to pick an option for someone who claims to be a rational person. And that's just it. Hera is first and foremost a scientist. And, scientists tend to like things that are predictable. And the Yes Man is basically the exact opposite of that. I mean, what are the potential outcomes of going with the Yes Man? I guess she could rule herself via the Yes Man, but I don't think she would be interested in that. She doesn't intend to become the Queen of Vegas or whatever. So, I don't know, I guess she could turn over power to someone else. A person or a group of persons, someone who is at least decently qualified, who is not going to turn into a jerk dictator, and most importantly, who has a certain amount of support among the inhabitants of Vegas. And I think it was also a reason why I have been delaying my final decision for so long. I was hoping that eventually such a person would show up and, give me some idea how the future might look like if I'm going with the Yes Man. But I feel at this point I just have to accept that this person just doesn't exist. Oh well, as a matter of fact, the person does exist. It's Hera, but she doesn't want the job. So I'm back at square zero here. So yeah, the Yes Man path could just as well lead to a power vacuum and chaos, and then, I don't know, someone terrible is using that power vacuum to grab power, and everything is going to be really, really bad. And, that's what I mean by the Yes Man has the most potential outcomes. It can be, really good, and it can be, really, really bad. And I mean, the Yes Man quest is literally called the wild card. And I think that's because that's exactly what it is. It's a wild card. You just don't know what you get. It's a gamble, right? A gamble over the future of Vegas. Now, from my player's perspective, that actually kind of adds to its charm, because we are playing a game based around Vegas, the city of gambling. So, I don't know, it seems rather fitting that we pick an option that is a big gamble. But again, Hera is just not a gambler. I mean, yes, she has been gambling in the casinos a bit, but not nearly as much as she could have, and, most importantly, only when she knew she would win because of her implants, or because she was wearing a sexy outfit to distract a croupier or whatever. So that's not really gambling if you know you're going to win, right? So yeah, that's not really a good argument for Hera to pick the Yes Man. Now there is one reason I could think of why Hera would go with a Yes Man, because it might be the option that most people of Vegas would prefer. I don't know. I mean, we talked a lot to a lot of people, and many of them don't like the NCR all that much. Very few people had an actual opinion about Mr. House, but the few opinions that I did hear were mostly negative as well. So, I don't know, maybe they would prefer the Yes Man path. But, I mean, there's still a problem here, or two problems actually, now that I think about it. First of all, we can't ask them to properly hear what they would prefer. And I mean, there's so many different factions in Vegas alone. There's the Strip with the three families, and they all have different agendas. And then there's Freeside and Westside and the Thorn and so on, and the Boomers, and there's so many different groups. They all have their own local leaders, so they might not want any kind of central power, to be honest. And in the end, that's the second problem. I don't really know what I would ask them, because I don't really know what going with the Yes Man would mean. So, yeah. I mean, it could be that Hera is going to rule. Maybe no one's going to rule. Will that work? So in the end, I feel I just don't have enough good reasons why Hera would pick the yes man. I just can't justify it from her position. She has too little information to make a good prediction here, and I think she absolutely doesn't like that. So I just can't see Hera going for it. Now, as I said before, I don't have to discard the yes man completely just yet. The quest will still be available, so if new information surfaces or the situation changes, Hera might still change her mind about it, I suppose. I do think the ability to change your opinion in the face of new information is a very important character trait, and far too few people exhibit this these days. So yeah, it still might be the yes man, but something has to happen for that first, or I just don't have a good reason to pick him. So, I don't know, let's move on to the next option instead. And I guess that would be Mr. House. Oh dear, Mr. House. Yeah, I have already talked in great length about Mr. House a while ago, so I'm trying not to repeat all of that again. But my opinion on him hasn't really changed since the last time I spoke about him. Because, no new information has surfaced since then. And in this case, my opinion and Hera's opinion are actually the same, unlike with the yes man. So I think Hera does like his general idea. I mean, it's focused on technology and science, so yeah, she can totally get behind that, I think. She may have some questions about his endgame, that is space colonization, but I'll get to that later maybe. But I think the basic idea that he has is not so bad. So for the most part, it's not his ideas that she has doubts about, but his, abilities, I guess. Because, as I said before, Mr. House seems to be even more reliant on the courier to do everything for him than the NCR is. Now, to be fair, I would say that this is in no small part due to the fact that, we are playing the protagonist of an RPG video game. And that means that everything that is important, or semi-important, or sometimes not important at all, is done by the protagonist, or else you wouldn't have much of a game, right? But, I understand that, but still, the discrepancy between what Mr. House wants to do and what he seems capable of doing is rather staggering, to be honest. It looks to me that the NCR is capable of doing more stuff on their own than Mr. House would be. And yes, I know, we are supposed to believe that Mr. House is this business genius that built a company out of nothing before the war, and that he's absolutely brilliant and whatnot, and that is basically what the game is telling us. It doesn't exactly show it though. That's the problem here, because in the end, that is what Hera sees. And, if I ask myself, what does she see when she looks at Mr. House? I don't know, she sees a man who can't even leave his house because he's just a voice from a computer. The people he wants to rule barely seem to be aware of his existence, and those that are don't really seem to like him. Hera had to foil 2 coup attempts against him since she arrived, which again doesn't exactly speak well of his position or strength of his position. And it was also done, by the very people that Mr. House actually brought into the place himself. And, in general, he just seems to have zero support among the local communities, as I've pointed out before. So, what about his accomplishments? The place, as in the strip, seems to be running smoothly, right? Yeah, but how much of that is actually Mr. House, I wonder? The business side, the casinos, seem to be taken care of by the 3 families for the most part. So they keep the place running in terms of the economy. The security is taken care of by the Securitrons. And while Mr. House is responsible for bringing in the families and creating the Securitrons, they now seem to be working pretty autonomously as far as I can tell, right? And not to mention that the Securitrons have that glaring security flaw that they can be commandeered by literally anyone via the S-Man. Again, that doesn't shed positive light on the Mr. House situation. And yeah, oh right, what about the electricity that keeps New Vegas running? Well, that is provided by the NCR. So again, without that, the strip as it is wouldn't exist. So I feel in the end, Mr. House's proof of concept, so to speak, is basically his pre-war success, right? That's why we are supposed to believe that he can do this, because he did all these great things before the war. But that's exactly it. That was before the war, under completely different circumstances. I mean, his company worked within the framework of what I assume was a mostly functioning nation state. So it already took care of a lot of things like infrastructure, law enforcement, education. There was an economy on which he could build upon. He didn't have to build everything up from scratch. So he could buy materials, oil, gasoline. If he needed skilled workers, he could just hire them. Where is he going to find skilled workers now? I will maybe get to that later again. So yeah, before the war, the state provided him with a lot of the groundwork. Now he wants to be the state, and sorry, that's just not the same as just running a business, even if I think Mr. House believes that it is. Now, I'm not saying that he absolutely can't pull it off. I'm just saying that I and Hera have some serious questions about it. And I mean, this is a situation where I really wish the game would give me more dialogue with Mr. House, because, like I said, Hera is probably sympathetic to some of his general ideas, but she would like to ask a lot more practical questions, like, where do you intend to find your skilled workers? I mean, the scientists, the engineers, to put your plans into practice. You know, you need these people. And I don't see a lot of engineers running around New Vegas. So is he just planning to brain drain the NCR for their engineers, like he's leeching off their electricity at the moment? I mean, the NCR seem to be the only people around here who actually have a proper educational system, and maybe the followers to a lesser degree. So how would Mr. House handle it? I feel that is a valid question. Another question would be, as I said, about his endgame, you know, colonizing another planet. Is that really feasible? Going into space, sure. I mean, they already did that before the war, right? And, you know, reaching other planets in the solar system, okay, that's also fine, I think. But finding another habitable planet, you know, an exoplanet outside of the solar system, then reaching it, which would require faster than light travel, something that we in the real world are nowhere near of achieving, and we were not set back by, like, a nuclear Armageddon, that seems like a very tall order. You may remember when Hera sent the Goa'uld into space, she also had some serious doubts that they would actually be able to reach an actual habitable place. Or, I don't know, maybe Mr. House is just planning to terraform and colonize Mars or something? Which honestly would be even more stupid, because if you have the ability to turn Mars into a habitable planet, you sure could just use it to fix our own planet, right? More people would benefit from that, I'm sure. So, that actually brings me to the next question. If space colonization was indeed possible, who would benefit from it in the end? Now, if he intends to run New Vegas like a business, does this mean that only those who can afford the trip will go to that new world and everyone else will be stuck here? I don't know, but yeah, that's a lot of questions, and as long as they're not answered, the whole thing just seems, I don't know, it seems like more of an Elon Musk style ego project than an actual attempt to help the people of the Mojave. So yeah, I think the bottom line is the only way that I think any of this could work is if Hera sticks around and becomes Mr. House's henchman, or henchwoman as it were. And honestly, I don't think she has any interest in that either. If she wanted that kind of power and a hand in, shaping the future of New Vegas in that form, she might as well go for the yes man and rule herself. Why bother being Mr. House's right hand if you can do it yourself, right? And probably she could do a better job at it too, because she's the one that won the support of all the different factions. The three families, the Boomers, the Kings. She also has good relations with, like, Westside, the Thorn. Well, especially the Thorn, a very personal relation, as a matter of fact. But for the most part, she gained these people's respect because she worked hard for it. So they would probably be willing to follow her or, support her when she declares herself ruler of New Vegas. But Mr. House, in the end, would only have this respect by proxy, meaning as long as Hera is around. And once she leaves, they will probably be back plotting against him as they've done before, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do realize that I, the player, am supposed to take Mr. House's word at face value. He has his idea. The game tries to tell me that he's a super brilliant and successful businessman. So if you pick him, you probably will more or less get what he is promising you as the final outcome of the game. So that is, essentially video game logic. But again, it's a very meta reason. Hera can only judge him based on what she sees in practice. And sorry, that's just not really all that convincing. There's just this large mismatch between show and tell here in regards to Mr. House. So, yeah, I don't know, long story short, Hera's not going to pick Mr. House because while he has some good ideas, in the end, they are still really vague, and what he wants to do just seems to be beyond his capabilities that he has demonstrated. And I mean here, in the present, not his past record. So, yep, sorry. No Mr. House. So, what does this leave us with? Well, boring old NCR. And the NCR has always been like my backup option, the option I would go for if I end up not liking any of the other options. Because even very early on in the game, I felt that with the NCR, at least I wouldn't majorly screw things up. It's not a perfect option, but it's also not the worst one, The reason why I didn't fully commit to the NCR, I think, was, well, it just seemed too obvious. It was kind of boring. So basically we're back to the meta reasons that I don't want to use for this decision. And, I mean, I said that Hera likes things that are predictable, right? So I think there's no other option around that is more predictable than the NCR. I mean, we have spent half the game working with or for them in some form. We know what they can do and what they can't do. They are by far the most familiar faction. Now, okay, you could say that this is just a problem of game design. The game is giving you so much stuff to do with the NCR and so little with any other faction, specifically in terms of side missions. I mean, I guess there are some side missions for the Legion, and there probably would have been more if you actually side with them, but it doesn't really seem a lot compared to the NCR. And, I mean, in case of the Yes Man, it makes sense that he doesn't give you any side missions, because he doesn't have any agency or agenda, so obviously everything that he tells you to do is just related to gaining the power in New Vegas. And, well, Mr. House, I don't know, maybe it's just an oversight by the developers to not give you more to do with or for Mr. House, right? Or maybe you could also say that it makes perfect sense that the only tasks that Mr. House gives the courier are those that are directly related to his power grab, because that's all he cares about. Of course, he's not going to send the courier on a mission to, I don't know, free some slaves or kill some fiends or find technology to improve farming methods or something like that. Because, even if he knew about this, he probably doesn't care. Yet, we are supposed to believe that once he has the power, life will become better for everyone. But again, probably not because he cares, but because, it's just some kind of ego project. On the other hand, the NCR, think of them what you will, is actually doing these things. They do, the practical groundwork, trying to improve the energy output of Hoover Dam by like 2%, or finding better ways to, distribute water among the farms, or trying to cultivate new plants that work better in this environment. All that stuff that is actually benefiting people right now. It's not as glamorous as, going into space, but it's actually improving people's lives. And I think Hera does like this pragmatic, unpretentious approach to science. Of course, the NCR also has some very obvious downsides. For once, as we've seen, a lot of people in New Vegas don't care much for them. But then again, neither do they seem to care for Mr. House. And if someone doesn't want to be ruled by the NCR, they certainly wouldn't want to be ruled by the more autocratic Mr. House. So that is an argument against the NCR, but it would make me just default back to the Yes Man and not to Mr. House. But, and I'm trying to wrap this up now because I'm talking way too long, much longer than I plan to do so. I think the most prominent counter-argument, the one that you keep hearing a lot, is this: the NCR expands too fast, they are stretched too thin, they have a hard time protecting the territory they have, so it feels kind of stupid to help them get their hand on even more territory, right? And yeah, I feel that is a good argument. Now, I do have some hopes that the situation might improve once we have secured Hoover Dam and pushed back the Legion, and they have more resources available to actually protect the territory that they have. But I still feel it is the most powerful argument against the NCR. This argument and the fact that the NCR option is kind of boring were basically my main reasons to not fully commit to the NCR in the end. But, and this is now basically my prime reason why I think Hera needs to support the NCR. There's one undeniable fact about Hera and the NCR. She's going to support them because that's what she's been doing the entire time already. Basically, from the moment she arrived in the Mojave. She has accepted every task they offered her, no matter how dangerous, no matter how mundane. She never tried to subvert them. She rejected tasks given by the Legion instead. There's exactly one thing that she did exclusively for Mr. House, and that was taking the chip to the Legion camp, but that's it. Everything else, like the Boomers, the Omertas, she did anyway for other reasons. But yeah, she was actually doing stuff for the NCR a lot. And as you may remember, I did mention how the Lonesome Road DLC actually helped me make my decision in this regard. Because the entire time, Ulysses simply seemed to assume that Hera is a loyal NCR supporter. I never declared her as such, nor did she declare herself as such. But the thing is, she didn't have to. Because in the end, actions speak louder than words, and her actions were always in favor of the NCR. So that's when I realized it actually makes perfect sense for Ulysses to assume that Hera was an NCR supporter, to some extent anyway, because why else would she be helping them so much, right? As a matter of fact, in the end, Hera was able to make Ulysses stand down by showing her conviction in the NCR. So like I said earlier, I don't think she's one of those patriotic, the NCR can do no wrong people we met here at Hoover Dam. But she must believe in the NCR enough to do all these things. And, you know, I've been thinking, among all the mumbo-jumbo that Ulysses uttered during the DLC, there were actually a few things that were pretty poignant. For example, he said something like, believe in what you follow. And based on her actions during the entire game, I can only assume that Hera follows and believes in the NCR. And in his final message, Ulysses said something, and I paraphrase, pick your symbol and stand by it proudly at Hoover Dam. And I realized, you know what? Hera has already picked her symbol long time ago by her actions, and it makes zero sense for her to turn around now and openly go against the NCR. Even if Mr. House and the Yes Men doesn't mean like the utter destruction of the NCR as the Legion is planning, it would still be going against them to an extent that I don't think Hera would do based on her previous actions. So, when I decided to give her the Courier's Duster with the NCR symbol on it, that was not for nothing. It wasn't just because of the perks. It was because I suddenly knew that is her symbol. That is what she has worked for the entire time. And now, it's time to proudly wear it and stand by it, finally. So, yeah, there you have it. That's my decision. But, in a sense, Hera already made that decision during the game. And not with like one big choice and one specific moment as I have now, but, you know, more naturally, gradually, over time. And while I do personally would have preferred the Yes Men, I feel very strongly that the boring, predictable NCR option is the one that just fits her character the best. So that's what I'm going to go for. And wow, this took like half an hour to explain. But at least I hope you understand why I went for this option. Because I just feel, from a role-playing perspective, it makes the most sense. And if I wanted to go for any of the other options, because like I said, they all have their positive aspects, I would have to play a different character from the beginning. But it turned out like this, so yeah, this is our decision. Which means now we have to actually act on it and, you know, have to stand by our symbol. Which means we have to continue this quest. For the Republic, Part 2, remove Mr. House as a threat to the NCR. Now, this is essentially the same quest as the one that I got from Mr. House. Kill or disable Mr. House. What's interesting is that neither quest specifically tells me to kill Mr. House, just, you know, eliminate him as a threat, disable, whatever. So I hope I can do this without actually having to kill him, because while Hera doesn't want to work for Mr. House, she doesn't specifically want to kill him either. But yeah, we have to figure out what exactly we gotta do here. So let's travel back to the strip and let's deal with Mr. House. Right, let's go here. And maybe we will finally find out what Mr. House is exactly. Well, I will say one positive thing about Mr. House, though. He has provided me with, you know, a decent place to stay during this game. But now it's time for a change of management, as the Yes Men would say. Alright.
Mr. House is just pleased as punch you got those old Securitrons back online, sugar.
I'm sure he is. Alright, now I have to figure out what I'm actually supposed to be doing here. I don't know. Is my quest marker giving me any advice? Well, there's a quest marker, so let's see. Okay, I don't want to talk to him. Quest marker is somewhere over here. Well, it might be related to the terminal. Welcome, Mr. House. Open antechamber. Okay, so there is like a hidden chamber somewhere. And I'm pretty sure I have to get inside. Of course, I'm not sure if all the Securitrons here are going to approve of that. Let me try something. I remember taking that one perk that would help me disable robots if I sneak up on them. Of course, at the moment I'm detected, so I don't think it's going to work. But still, let's see if we can disable these Securitrons. And I'm still detected.
Do not be alarmed. We've been upgraded to serve you better. Have a nice day.
I mean, I think it's a good idea, but I'm not sure if I will be able to... Okay, it's hidden? Oh, yes, it does work. Let's deactivate. Okay. I mean, it looks like he's still activated, but I just hope that this works and he's not going to cause any problems for me. Let's see, can we do the same with the other Securitrons? And I have to be in a proper spot where I'm not detected, right? What about him? Still detected. Okay, there's like a spot where I can do it. There we go. Deactivated. Perfect. And now let's try to do the same with this guy over here. There we go. Deactivated. Now the thing is, I still see more NPCs on my compass, so there might be more Securitrons around. I mean, we got her over here, but she's not technically a Securitron, right? So can I disable her is the question. Well, I can. Okay, we got another one over here. Also going to be deactivated. Alright, I mean, these guys aren't actually active. No, they're not. So, I guess that is all. Of course, it looks from the compass at least as if there's more NPCs somewhere in that area. So just in case the deactivation didn't work, I feel I should be prepared. Now, let's try to open that chamber. Warning, unauthorized user, proceed. I guess I will proceed. Alright, yes, we do have another Securitron over here. I guess I had to expect that. Alright. And there's another one over here. Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think The upgrade is certainly working out. Let's use some stim packs here. And let's try to destroy this one too. Alright. But yeah, apparently deactivating these Securitrons made my life a lot easier. Let's see. What do we got here? Security override. Let's do it. Huh. Not sure if that did anything. Well. That's the only way I can go, I suppose. Unlock control room elevator. Warning, unauthorized user, proceed. Well, made it this far. May as well continue. Oh boy, okay. Let's go. Yeah, welcome Mr. House. Let's go to the control room. Ooh. What is this place? Well, whatever it is, it seems to be safe. No enemies around. Another terminal. Oh, what the hell? What? Talk to Mr. House. Oh, is that Mr. House? So, he is human? Kinda? Like the remains of a human? In stasis? He looks like a mummy in a sarcophagus, to be honest. Okay, well, at least that answers your questions. That's how he's been able to stay alive for that long. Huh. Okay, well, what do I want to do first? Talk to Mr. House or use a terminal? Unseal LS chamber. Oh, well, not sure if I want to do that. Sure. Let's talk. If we can. Oh, do I have to unseal the chamber if I want to talk to him? Because this is not working. Well. I mean, I might be able to kill him, but like I said, I don't really want to kill him if I can prevent it. Okay, well, looks like this is my only option here. Warning, microbial infection risk, proceed. Ugh. Well, what choice do I have? Alright, can we talk now?
Why have you done this? Centuries of preparation. So much good undone.
It's just business. I don't like you. The NCR asked me to get rid of you. By Caesar's command you will die. Yes, man needs you out of the way. I mean, in the end, it was because the NCR asked me to get rid of you. I honestly wouldn't have minded keeping him along. I mean, once we have control over the Securitrons via the Yes Man, I honestly don't feel that Mr. House would have much of a role to play anymore, so I don't really care what happens to him. I don't like you. I don't, but that's not really the reason why Hera is doing this. So yeah, the NCR asked me to get rid of you. I'm sorry.
Those snakes. For them, you sad, misguided whore.
Well, let's just say they provided me with the better proof of concept that they can actually improve life for the Mojave and is not going to spend it on some weird space colonization project. Time for you to die, Mr. House. I won't be able to control anything, but I'll let you live. Yeah, I feel that is a reasonable option. I'll put you back in your tube, good as new. Well, good as new is a bit of an overstatement looking at him. I mean, he clearly went far, far beyond the lifespan of a normal human being. So yeah, I don't really have any direct problem with you, so I'll let you live.
No! Don't disable Cerebro! I'd rather be killed! Just kill me!
Well, I'm just going to put you back, I suppose.
Nothing to say to you.
Well, fair enough. I don't have anything to say to you either. Sterilize Alice chamber. Disable cerebral interface. Right, I think this is what I'm supposed to do, because if I disable the interface, he can't control, like, his Securitrons anymore, and I will be able to take control, right? Yeah, let's do it. Warning, Alice chamber occupant will be unable to control subsystems. Proceed. Yes. Completed. There we go. I did it. I did it. Alright. Now can I actually put him back into his chamber? Okay, the other option to sterilize the chamber doesn't exist anymore. I'm not even sure what that would have done, to be honest. But whatever. It looks like we're done. Let's have a look at the quest. Return to Colonel Moore and report that Mr. House is no longer a threat. And the house has gone bust. The house has gone bust. You have irrevocably disconnected Mr. House from the Lucky 38's mainframe computer. And I've also finished, like, the task for for the Yes Man, right? Yeah, this one. Wildcard change in management. So I will keep the Yes Man option available to me. But like I said, something has to happen for me to actually go with the Yes Man instead. How are we looking down here? Still looking good. Securitrons aren't hostile. Connection lost. Well, I think that is the picture of the day. Oh, look at all these books. Did I do that? I don't think so. Okay, let's just go back. Interesting, she completely disappeared. Huh. Wonder why. Okay, I think I'll actually head back to Hoover Dam and talk to Colonel Moore, because I would be curious to see what I have to do next. Also, I think my companions are stuck again, so they're not going to leave until I specifically tell them to. Follow me,
Lead the way.
please.
Obituaries of the recently deceased Mr. House, President, CEO, and sole proprietor of the Vegas Strip, are still available. Just ask any Securitron.
But I didn't kill him. Not directly, anyway. I mean, since I didn't put him back into his chamber, I guess he might have died from that. But I didn't really get the option to put him back, which is kind of stupid. But oh well. I mean, he has already lived much longer than he probably should have. So, let's go back to Hoover Dam. Well... right. I think I vaguely remember where I need to go to find Colonel Moore. As a matter of fact, I think there's like a decent shortcut somewhere through the visitor center. And yeah, as you can see, all the people in this place, and not just this place, but basically everywhere, are just nameless people. No, this is not it. I think the elevator and the stairs actually go to the same place. Okay, this over here is the way to the offices, I think. Yes, it is.
Nelson's back in our hands. I hope we can defend
And
it this
there's
time.
Colonel Moore. Let's talk. I have some good news for
Report.
you.
Is Mr. House still a threat?
No, he may or may not be dead. Mr. House won't be a problem. He's been disconnected from his system. Well, that is definitely true.
But he's still alive? I'll have to remember to send someone to follow up on that later. Anyway, at least he's out of the picture for the time being. You might be happy to know that your efforts haven't gone unnoticed either. The brass have been throwing around the idea of having the president visit the dam for a while now, to rally the troops and boost morale and such.
All right.
With our recent achievements, they finally feel secure enough to stage the damn thing. But while it's being planned, I have one last
Damn
mission
thing,
for
huh?
you. Several years ago, we managed to wrest the Helios 1 solar power station from the Brotherhood of Steel chapter local to this area. It was a crushing victory, but no one's heard a peep from the Brotherhood since. Most people assume the Brotherhood is scattered and not a threat. Recently, we've had scouts go missing in an area west of Helios, and I'm concerned that the Brotherhood is involved.
Huh.
I want you to find them, and once you do, finish them for good. Any questions?
Well, I might have some. Is there no peaceful way to resolve them? I mean, I've already gained a good reputation with the Brotherhood. How do you expect me to destroy an entire Brotherhood chapter? I thought the Brotherhood were all wiped out of Helios 1. Could they have survived? Yeah, maybe we find a better way to resolve this.
Don't even think about it. Any Brotherhood survivors likely harbor a deep grudge against us. We can't afford to leave such an enemy alive. Any other objections? Maybe you'd like to bring the Brotherhood some flowers.
Honestly, I don't care about the Brotherhood, but I'm a little bit worried about Veronica. Well, let's see. I know where to look for them. And I guess I will figure out the rest on my own. But yeah, tell me more about Helios 1. I mean, again, I know kinda the story behind it, but, you know, tell me more about it.
After the battle, we consolidated our hold on the plant before pursuing our enemies. It was a mistake, to be sure, but there wasn't really any place for them to go. When we finally gave chase, however, they had simply vanished. Some of our people think they had some means of conveyance, like the vertibirds the Enclave used, and hightailed it out of here. I think that they found some place to hide close to Helios, and never went that far at all. Any other questions?
No, because I'm already like 3 steps ahead of you, so I have no more questions.
Dismissed.
Thank you.
I need to talk to you about something, if you have.
Really? Yes, please. I'm listening.
Any day now? Caesar's going to try to march across Hoover Dam and kick NCR out of the Mojave. We're getting caught up in something important out here. Hell, after how you handled Benny, you're practically right in the middle of all this. I know
No
I'm just
kidding.
along for the ride, but it's made me think about the past and how I might be able to help out.
All right. Well, tell me more.
I wasn't always with the followers, or with the NCR. My late father was an officer in a group called the Enclave, a remnant of America's pre-war government. Memories being short around here, not a whole lot of people remember them. But they did bad things. Terrorized communities, kidnapped people. Eventually someone stopped them. I was born a few years later at a military base on the coast, a place called Navarro.
All right, well, tell me more about the Enclave. I've heard the name before, but not really much about them.
A lot of different places. I only know what I was told. Some of them were cut down by the NCR and the Brotherhood. Some of them went east. My mother never told me what happened to my father, but she and I went south with some others and integrated into the NCR. When the NCR learned that Enclave personnel had integrated, we kept moving to the fringes. It's one of the reasons why I wound up out here.
Okay, well, tell me more about Navarro.
After the Enclave's command structure fell apart, it was only a matter of time before Navarro was overrun by NCR forces. My mother and I left with some of the troopers from my father's old unit, the same people I've kept in contact with over the years. Anyone who didn't get out was killed by the NCR. Even some of the ones who escaped were eventually hunted down by the Brotherhood of Steel.
And what exactly do you want me to do in all of this?
The Enclave did a lot of bad things, but there were good people at Navarro. Good people with a lot of experience. Not many of them are alive anymore, but I think they can make a difference in the fight against Caesar.
So you want them to help the NCR?
That's a hard question to answer. I know I don't want the Legion to take Hoover Dam.
Fair
So
enough.
militarily, yes, I want them to help NCR. If possible, I'd like to figure out a way to help the NCR win Hoover Dam without holding New Vegas.
Okay, yeah, I get it. That would probably be, for example, the Yes Man path. But I guess I can help you with that. If they're willing to help us defend Hoover Dam against the Legion, that's good enough for me.
Great. I'd like you to talk to the old-timers, the remnants. I don't think I could convince them by myself. To them, I'm still a kid. But you're a big part of what's happening out here. When you talk to them, they'll understand how important this all is. I've kept in contact with them over the years, so I know where you can find them. But I doubt they'll open up to you unless I come along. I know I'm not always the most serious guy around, but this means a lot to me. Thanks.
Well, I've been waiting for you to give me your personal quest for quite some time, so let's have a look at it. For Old Lang Syne. Okay, so I have to find a bunch of people. Some of the names I actually recognize. Dr. Henry, Cannibal Johnson. Yeah, these names I definitely recognize. And my next task for the Republic is to deal with the Brotherhood. Again, the description is rather vague. Deal with them. That could mean anything. So we will find more out about that later. But I think I will actually start with Arcade's quest first before I continue with this one. But yeah, here we are. We made a decision. I mean, we still have the option between the NCR and the Yes Man. So if for some reason I don't like where the NCR path is taking me, I can still decide to jump boat. But I feel for now I want to commit to this path and continue with this. But yeah, I guess that's enough for today. Most of the episode is me talking about my decision. But now it's time to end it, and we will continue with Arcade's quest in the next one. So as usual, thank you for watching, and see you again next time.